you do have to be hungry.
Yeah.
I wanted that more than I wanted oxygen. I really did, man. Because business overhead, if you don't know it, will kill you. Like, do not follow my business like I'm terrible. Like, you're on your own. You are the business. That was a $7,000 mistake that I made. You modify that, you can really make some money.
If I had room to wiggle on this price, then I wasn't giving you a fair price to begin with. You don't have a foot to stand on in court.
It's about work.
Exactly.
My work-life balance is absolutely horrible, but I like that. I don't care.
Dude, just having somebody like that in your life, super. Yeah. I mean, he's just been a huge resource. Yeah, he's awesome. Welcome to the first official episode of the PTG Podcast. I'm here with my good friend Alex Cavallo with Cavallo Home Services, and we're going to get started here. So thanks for coming, Alex.
Dude, honored to be the inaugural guest.
I know.
I'm looking forward to this.
Exciting. Are you nervous?
Not really.
No. Okay, good. All right.
Just chill, man.
Chill. All right. Going to be a chill conversation. We got a couple cool topics to talk about. We got started a little early and we had to cut ourselves off because we didn't want to.
The conversation was already getting good. So.
Yeah. Keep the cameras rolling for the good stuff.
Yep.
Cool. All right, man. So we'll just jump right into it. First, we'll start. I'll just have you kind of go over how we met, just because I think that's a pretty neat story.
Yeah. Obviously, in business, everybody talks about the importance of a network and networking. They say, your network is your net worth, which I just hate the slogan because it sounds cheesy, but it is true to a big extent.
Yeah.
And we met through a mastermind group, local contractors, and we just got to talking. You did pavers, I did decks. They go hand in hand.
Yep.
That's it. The rest is history.
Yep.
That's simple.
Cool. It wasn't too far into our friendship when we did like a pretty big project together.
Yeah, that was surprising and it was in my neck of the woods, and they had reached out and they were like, we want a giant paver patio and a pergola. And I was like, well, we do that. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I have the guy for this. And funny, like when I look back at that, how long it's been since then and how much both of us have learned since then.
It has been.
That's crazy that we did a job that size at that stage in business. Dude. But that's how it happens.
I remember, and you can talk to Chelsea about it later, I was freaking out. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But I got a picture.
We're just going to do it.
That picture that I have, the drone picture of you on the ladder with the poster and the pergola, I have that framed like real big. Okay. I'm thinking about putting that down.
I didn't even know that.
Dude, I love that picture because it's like, beginnings, it's cool.
It really was. That was the first big job I did as a general. Mm-hmm. So working with you was a great experience, and thank God you actually knew what you were doing.
You had a lot of trust in me.
It. I mean, I had to at some point, but you have the OCD like I do. So I knew that just based on that, it was going to be tight. Yeah.
It turned out good.
It did, even though the pergola wasn't square. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was actually like 6 to 8 inches out, but it actually worked out where the walkway like opened up, mm-hmm. and it ended up being perfect. It was
square to itself, which was the most important thing.
Yes, it was square to itself. It just wasn't quite square to the edge of the pavers, but I'll take 50% of the blame, and then the other 50% to the guy who was helping me set those posts.
Okay. That works.
Yeah, but that's okay.
That works.
Yeah.
Cool. So I want to definitely dive into how you got into contracting, because you definitely didn't grow up in it,
No, I mean, there's, everybody has a different story about going into business and doing that kind of thing. And for me, it was, I went to college and did all that, which is, not necessary at all.
What'd you go to college for?
But I got my undergrad and my master's degree in criminal justice.
Okay. Well, that works with what you
at the time. Yeah. At the time, but dude, I got a cut.
We are back.
We're back.
Alex had a little situation. Apparently, these chairs don't agree with him. He cramped up, so now he's sitting on a pillow.
I had a long day. Yeah. I installed 80 lineal feet of fence by myself, and now I come here.
He's just turning into an old man.
My leg, we're good. We were talking about how I got into business.
Yeah, down some mustard, got a pillow. Now we're back. So the question was, it was the your degree.
Yes,
what you went to college for.
So I finished my undergrad in December of 2018, and I did an accelerated master's also in criminal justice. I finished that in December of 2019. I started my job in January of 2020. I worked for the government as a background investigator, and I did that job for 2 years, and then I quit in March of 2022 to start working in business full time.
Okay, I'm gonna slow you down a little bit.
Yeah, skips a lot.
That was the summary. I want to break that down a little.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get into that line of work?
Yeah, so into the government? Okay, so I mean, so growing up in high school and college, I did like labor, like decks, fences, landscaping, like that kind of labor, which I liked and made good money. But I mean, when I was in high school and they said they would pay me $15 an hour as a high schooler, that's like, I thought I was rich.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I learned a lot of the labor aspect of business, but obviously I wanted to get what I would consider at the time a real job.
Yeah.
Which I just want to throw away that myth now that this is also a real job. Obviously, I mean, I don't believe in unskilled labor to most extent.
Yeah.
But I was like, I need to study something, and I took like several classes in college when I first started, like prerequisites. So it was either like I took like, sociology, psychology, criminal justice, business. I like criminal justice the most. So I was like, I'm going to make, what is this?
That's the doorbell. Chelsea just came home.
Oh, okay.
You can keep going.
We're good. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to major in criminal justice. And I mean, I did well in those classes. I took college very seriously, too seriously.
So you're like almost the opposite of like how people get into blue collar work.
Yeah.
Like you actually like school?
Say like, I didn't like college per se, but I was good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I got straight A's for the most part because I was like, oh, I need this to get an actual job. And again, I use actual job loosely, but I was like, okay. And that's what I did. And I did what you would think like society would want an adult to do, which is get a full-time job. But I knew like the second I walked in to that office at the time, I knew immediately, I was like, there's no chance I can do this job. I don't even know how I did it for 2 years. Well, I do because I started my business processing immediately, but the world ended, 2 months after I started that job. So processing for everything you need for a business, everything was shut down. Nobody knew what was going on.
So like filing for your LLC.
It took me over a year to get my MHIC just in processing time.
Yeah, because you went straight into deck, so you had to get your MHIC. Right
I needed MHIC to do anything I wanted to do.
Yeah, it took a while for them to process.
It took about a year, man.
After you passed the test?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the test, I think it took me like 3 months to get that like reviewed because I submitted the application. Yeah. They have to review it, and then they schedule the test. That was like 3 months, and then I passed the test because it's open book, and then I had to wait a year for processing. It was crazy. And so I knew I couldn't leave the government, right, until I had that at least. That's critical for me. And then plus LLC, right, MHIC, then you need insurance, and you need a lot of things to actually get the business going, all of which, by the way, I had to learn myself.
Yep.
So
we'll talk about your lesson that you learned with insurance.
I have a lot to say about that. Yeah, so once all that processed, that's what I was waiting for. And as soon as everything was good to go, I started scheduling side jobs. I was taking leave from the government as much as I could. And even not only leave, but let me just say, like that job, I got in the office at 6 a.m. and we were working 8 hour day. I got off at 2 p.m. And as soon as I got off, I would go to my job site and then work until sundown. And that summer. I mean, I was working 2 to 9 p.m. in addition to 6 to 2 p.m. And, if you're leaving a full-time job to do business, like, I don't want it to sound daunting, but you do have to be hungry.
Yeah.
Like, it is not something that you can just be like, oh, I just want to get into business, blah, blah, blah. No, like, you need to be, if you're sure, then you're fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to scare anybody away, but you have to be hungry. I mean, I wanted that more than I wanted oxygen. I really did, man. I was like, I was tearing it up that summer. I mean, that was insane. It was absolutely insane. But I just scheduled side jobs while I worked for the government. We were allowed to moonlight. I mean, the job wasn't anything special. I was just a background investigator. So we didn't take any work home with us. And you just do like a background investigation on like an applicant, somebody who wants to work there. And you just run their background and then I leave. So it didn't have anything to do with anything. Didn't have to take my work home. It wasn't law enforcement. So it wasn't like I had to like do whatever law enforcement doesn't work odd hours. It's like 6 a.m., 2 p.m. Now you can do whatever you want. And I chose to do my building stuff.
Yep.
But the thing is, I wanted my life to be simple because I liked building and I like being in the field. I never actually wanted to run a business either, and like learning what that actually means, right? Advertising, taxes, business overhead, calculations, Excel spreadsheets, sales, estimating, contracts, liability, everything that I never wanted to do.
Yeah.
I'm still doing it. So, I mean, there's still nothing I would rather do.
Yeah.
But those things are something that you have to learn, but you'll learn as you go. And I know that you and I have differing opinions on this, but like I think that if you're going from a full-time job, whatever that is, whether it's in the field of construction or not, and you want to start a construction business, like you need to be ready to leave at a certain time. And I think you need to have work scheduled out. I think that you need to do.
Oh, no, I agree with that.
Yeah. But you were saying like, you just send it, right?
Well,
wasn't that the discussion?
The discussion that we had previously, yeah, I was going to bring this up because I wanted you to touch base with it. I don't think there's like a certain number because I played with that for a while.
Oh, okay. The number. Yeah.
I don't think there's a certain number because I sat down, I can't tell you how many times, and did the math and was like, okay, I need to, and at the time I was cutting grass. So I was like, I need this much lawns, I need to do this many landscaping jobs. I needed to make, I need to hit this number for revenue in order for me to leave my job. And then I just eventually came to the conclusion that I'm not going to hit those numbers until I leave my job.
Right. But if I'm fine with that, but if you can project that out at least.
Yes.
So like
I agree with that.
Yes. So like, for example, let's say I was working on my business building. I was working 40% of the time that I was doing my full-time job. Was I doing 40% of revenue or approximately? Then yes. Or could I extrapolate the fact that if I had jobs scheduled out, which I also did before I left, by the way, just to be ready. I had jobs for like 3 or 4 months ready to go. And I explained that when I went to estimates too. I was like, I'm about to start business full time. I'm licensed and insured, but I have not quit my full-time job yet. I'm scheduling out. I never had any problems with that. Everybody was fine with that. And that's what I did. So just have an idea of like how much work you're going to have and how much revenue you're going to have. But I also do think it's important to know your numbers. Yeah. Because business overhead, if you don't know it, will kill you.
For sure.
You just need to know. I mean, you don't necessarily need to know what your day rate is because then you're going to wake up every morning. You're like, if I don't make $230 today, I lost money. But you do need to know, like, basically how much do I need to make per month at least to at least not only break even, but just to pay the bills.
For sure.
Right.
Especially in those slower months throughout the winter. And stuff.
I mean, if you're just starting and you don't have a yard rent and you don't have trailers and truck payments and you don't have any of that, and your only overhead is your insurance, you get a CPA. I would say that's step number one, because you're not going to want to file business taxes. It's like $1,000 a year. That's important because I did not mess with the IRS.
I had to go back after I had like left the county and everything, and my CPA had to go back and do all of my taxes from when I was like working for the county, because I was like, I'm just doing a couple lawns. It feels like, we got to clean this up. Yeah. So I had to like pay them back, like, hey, we messed up, but here it is.
My CPA also a big help. So shout out to Kevin McGowan and McGowan Consulting LLC. I think it is. I don't know.
Awesome.
But he's a really nice guy, and but the point is, like, you're going to have limited overhead. So like, don't let that stop you. Like, you just need to know what it is. Yeah. But it's going to be so limited, like, until you start getting yard rent. Like, I pay $1,650 a month for my yard where I keep all my trailers and my extra truck. I have a dumpster there. I have a shed. I keep a lot of tools, like everything locked up. $1,650. And honestly, in Anne Arundel County, that is not high.
That's good. Yeah.
Like, there's a guy on the next yard over. First off, there's nothing zone C4, like commercial. It's hard to get your hands on, but you do that, and then people are renting it out. There's a guy right across from me. He has a similar space. It's $2,800 a month.
Really?
Like, I'm gonna stick with mine. Yeah. Like, it's insane. Wow. So, plus I love my landlord, so he's like a super nice guy and really chill, and like, we talk all the time, but. So you're not going to have those expenses. So you don't really need to worry about that, but at least know your overhead before you quit your full-time job. Yeah. At minimum. And then if you can schedule jobs out, which you may not be able to, but if you can, I would recommend doing that too. At least have an idea of what you're going to do. But again, I learned all the business stuff. Like I learned it on the fly. It would have been nice if I had known a lot before I had done it. But the guy who taught me everything I know, he knew about building. He'd been in business for 25, 30 years. This man did not know anything about business. He did not file his taxes at all from 2020 to 2024. IRS caught it. It was a whole thing. And this man told me, he was like, listen, I can help you with the building and learning code and everything. But he's like, do not follow my business. Like, I'm terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so disorganized.
I mean, sometimes you have those mentors, if you want to call it, that you learn what not to do.
And
those relationships are valuable.
Yes. I mean, I learned what to do and what not to do.
Of course.
Absolutely, from him. And one thing I want to say is you don't write your contracts on a napkin. Like, you should see my contract. He made fun of me to no end when he saw my contract was like 6 pages when I first started.
Yeah.
But I was like, you have to protect yourself from liability. It's important to have a strong contract.
Yep.
And that's just another thing. So just things that you should just be ready for mentally.
While we're on the topic of learning lessons, I don't want to miss this because I want to talk about this. Let's talk about your workers' comp experience.
Okay. Yes. Let me just say, if you're getting so in the state of Maryland, you are legally required. If you're on a job, you need to have whoever's on the job, either it's you or whether it's an employee, or even if somebody technically walks on the job for any reason, and that's why you can kick people off the job, right? Because they need to be insured. Because if somebody gets hurt, then they need to be able to pay for their wages when they're unable to work. Like if somebody breaks their leg, okay, they're out for 3 months. They're going to need to be compensated for 3 months. I mean, that makes sense. If you don't have workers' comp and the Maryland Labor Board finds out, they are going to fine you to no end. So you pretty much...
And that's the best situation.
Yeah.
That Maryland finds out first before something bad happens.
Oh, man. And if something bad happens, you could be in a world of trouble. I've heard horror stories from my insurance company about payouts. It's absolutely insane. So what I recommend, now you can be covered by your own workers' comp if you want to. Let me just say this, though. I'm never going to file a claim against my own company.
Yes.
I don't care what happens, but I also have, technically I have sick leave because not a lot of people know about this, and I don't know, honestly, anybody else that has it. But I have personal long-term and short-term disability insurance through State Farm.
Yeah. Yep.
And I confirmed with them at the time that I signed all that stuff that it does cover workplace injury.
Really?
So if I'm off the job for 3 months, my long-term kicks in. It gives me, $5,000 a month for however long until I can get back to work. And it is not expensive.
How much is it?
I think it's like less than $100 a month.
No kidding.
So like that is nice. And again, not a lot of people have that. And that is a hack, because if you're not covered by your own workers' comp and you also don't have insurance on yourself at all, like what happens if you get hurt? You don't have sick leave as a business owner.
Yeah.
You're burning overhead for the times that you can't work. Especially in the beginning, that can kill you. It's not like you can just hire someone to do this stuff for you. Like you're on your own. You are the business. So I would recommend that. And then with your workers' comp, you can take an owner's exclusion. That is so critical. I cannot overstate that you need to have an owner's exclusion if you're on a workers' comp policy, because otherwise you have to pay as if you have a salary. I believe in Maryland is $72,900, somewhere in that range. I don't know if that's the exact number. And then whatever type of work you're doing is rated at a percentage of that $72,000 salary.
So masonry is 6%. What's carpentry?
10%.
Yeah.
So you'd be paying $77,200 a year.
You sound like you're speaking from experience.
I am speaking from experience because that happened to me, and they didn't tell me about it until it was time to do my annual audit, which I know the word audit sounds scary, but if you have a workers' comp policy, you're going to do an audit every year.
Yeah.
It's called like an annual premium audit.
Easy.
It's easy. You just fill out like who worked for how many hours and what their salary was.
Yep.
And then they do the math.
And subs.
We'll
talk about subs later.
I have a lot to say about that too. But so you basically, you don't want to pay $7,200 a year. Yeah. That was a $7,000 mistake that I made. Well, but that's how you learn.
That is how you learn.
That is how you learn. So take an owner's exclusion. Unless you want to be covered by workers' comp, but you don't need to, just get long-term or short-term disability insurance. and through a local broker, and you'll be good to go. And that's pretty much it.
Yep.
So again, those are growing pains that you learn in business that I learned the hard way. The other thing I would say about that, we can get into subs a little bit.
I do want to touch on that.
But they also rate your sub. If you bring a subcontractor on a job who does not have their own workers' comp, then they're getting rated at whatever you pay them at your workers' comp rate.
Yep. And
by the way, if you don't specify the difference between labor and materials in that contract, you're paying for everything you paid them.
Yep.
So if I subbed out a $30,000 deck, and that's all the contract said was $30,000, and that's it, and I paid them that to do that deck, if I didn't specify how much material was, now I'm paying 10% of $30,000 right off the bat. Well, there goes everything I was making on the job.
Yeah.
So you need to specify the difference between labor and materials for your subcontractor in that contract as well. Ideally, by law, you're supposed to have a subcontractor agreement. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but I will say that
definitely recommend it if you're working with just like random subs.
Yeah.
But if it's somebody you trust, then it's a different situation.
Yeah. I mean, the contract needs to be tight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just make sure the contract is tight. That's the number one thing.
With the client.
And the other contractor.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So, because you're going to send it to them. So if you hired me, right, I'm giving you a contract to sign.
We're kind of loose on that together, though.
We have
done jobs like halfway through. He's like, "Hey, bud, like,
ideally,
sign the contract for me."
You're gonna have someone don't do that. You need to have that signed in writing before you even do that. Yes. You need to have a 30% deposit. Be a responsible business owner. Yeah. But I have done numerous jobs for other contractors where I didn't even get paid till the end. Like I just floated it.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, sometimes you just do that, but I don't recommend doing that. But that's something else. But again, so for the subcontractors, if they don't have their own workers' comp, specify the difference between labor and materials in that contract, and that way you can submit that during your annual audit, and you're only paying on the labor portion.
Yes.
The other option, which I recommend it a lot higher than that, only use subcontractors that have workers' comp.
Yes, because then you just submit their workers' comp.
You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, and then you're good.
Yeah. So like me, I have something called a ghost policy, which is I have a workers' comp policy, but I have an owner's exclusion. I'm the only employee of my business, and all my subcontractors are fully insured by their own workers' comp.
Yep.
But I still have a workers' comp policy in place because I bring helpers and day laborers, and someone has to be covered by something on my job site by law. Yep. And then you just add that up, and then you submit that at the annual audit. And I believe, like I told them, with all my like helpers combined, it would be no more than $30,000 a year. Yeah. So they base it off of that. You tell them, you're like, how much do you expect to pay this year in helpers or day laborers?
Yep.
At $30,000.
One thing I do want to note.
That's it.
One thing I want to note, just for the people watching, if they're going through, because workers' comp it seems like a bear when you first get into it, especially when you're just starting in business, but it's way easier than you think. Yeah. I put it off for a while. Just because I was like, I don't even know where to get started. It's super easy. Just reach out to an insurance broker and, have them handle it. But when you do your audit, make sure that you're not cutting yourself short with the label. So like you can have somebody come on your job. Like we do a lot of masonry work.
Yes, for sure.
But that doesn't mean that the labor that I sub out on my projects they're not masons. They're not doing mason work. Maybe they're just, shoveling stuff around. So they should be listed as a laborer, which is going to be a lower rate. For sure. That's critical. But also it's important to be knowledgeable, because you said just call a broker. And again, that obviously you're going to have to call a broker. What you ran into. Yep.
But that was my problem, is that my broker actually, I wouldn't say they lied, but I would say
they definitely led you in the wrong direction.
Information was either withheld intentionally, or it somehow flew under the radar. And they actually ended up, once I learned enough, and I actually confronted them and I told them I need an owner's exclusion. I want a ghost policy. They were like, you can't by law get a ghost policy. Yeah. Cause I remember we were talking about it, cause I was like, I have an owner's exclusion. Exactly. And you were like, oh, well, they said I'm good. And then you found out throughout the audit that you weren't. Exactly. And I even called the insurance provider, which was Chesapeake Employers Insurance, which they pretty much have a monopoly in Maryland on that. And they were super apologetic, but they were like, if that's what your broker told you, that's between you and them. Like we provided you with workers' comp for yourself and you have to pay. And I did. I had to pay $7,000. Yeah. So that's the importance of having, yes, you need to contact a broker, but you need to have your own knowledge. And if you want to if a ghost policy is right for you, then you need to know that that's a thing. Because like I said, they told me there's no, you can't do that in Maryland. Well, I called another broker and they were like, you sure can. Yeah. Here you go. They gave it to me.
We'll get into your business model why your business model should have a ghost policy, because not everybody should.
Yes, exactly. It has to be
can
right
get
for
into
you.
that.
Yes.
Because it's a super unique business model. Honestly, it's a strategy overall, and it's something that I've implemented over the past couple months to a different scale. But let's that's a good segue. We'll jump into that. So your business model, you do decks, carpentry, that kind of stuff. You do little jobs here and there. Describe how you have stuff set up.
Yeah. So basically what I have, when you start your business, generally, there's going to be two things you're going to do. One, you already have knowledge of the subject matter. Like you already knew pavers before you started your paver business. I already knew decks before I started my deck business. I jump into that and I started doing that myself, or you bring in a helper and help you. If you don't know anything about that kind of construction, your other option is to do 100% subs. So if you know things about business, or you're very good with business numbers and everything like that, but you don't know anything about labor, it's not a problem. You do 100% subs, okay? And then you let your subcontractor do the work for a reduced rate in exchange for you selling jobs for them. So let's say a deck would normally cost 20 grand, right? And your subcontractor is like, listen, if we don't have to do the sale, if we don't have to meet the client, if we don't have to do any of that, and all we have to do is come in and do the deck, I'll do it for you for 16.
Yep.
But market rate's 20, so you can charge 20.
And it's important to note that you're not ripping off the client. The client's getting
Not
the
at
same
all.
deal if they went directly to that contractor.
Exactly.
You're just taking the position of the management for it and getting paid for that portion of the project.
Right.
So even though a client will go to that same subcontractor as the normal contractor, they're still going to pay that same $20,000 for the $20,000 deck.
Yeah, and there are a lot of contractors who like seek to just gouge as much money out as possible, and neither of us are like that. I mean, I want to do what's fair market rate.
Yep.
And provide the best job possible within a client's budget.
Yep.
And but the point is though, you're still making money off the top because you're taking that managerial role, you're taking the sales role, you're taking the liability, which is huge because it is going to be technically, well, if your subcontractor should have liability insurance. So actually, if anything went wrong, it really hopefully would fall on them. But technically, it's whoever's who wrote the contract. And you have a contract with that homeowner, so it really is. Well,
let's talk about.
Yours.
Let's say somebody comes in, they build a deck for you, and then they go out of business 2 years later, and then the deck falls down 3 years later.
It's on you.
Who's on the hook for that?
It's on you.
So that's when the liability is important.
Exactly. So that's true for sure. So that's something to be aware of. But generally, like I said, you're either going to do the work yourself with helpers, or you're going to do 100% subs. Now, what I found was best was to do a modification of 100% subs. So the majority of work that I can do myself physically, I will. Or if a job is simple, it's a simple deck. Like I can handle this, I'm going to do this. And then if it's a big job, then I bring in the subs, and I'm able to do the math because I know how much they charge. They either charge a day rate or a square foot rate, depending on the job, depending on the size of the job. Like if it's a job that they could get done in a day, they're probably going to charge a square foot rate instead of a day rate because it's wherever they make more is what they're going to charge, to be honest. But you know what those rates are, and then you do the math whenever you're doing your estimate, and you just say what's going to make the most sense. And even what I've done is I've taken that a step further. Instead of either me doing easy jobs and them doing hard jobs, is I might take a hard job and I only sub them out to do the hard part, and then I'll do the rest of it. So let's say it's a very basic deck, simple, but it has like an extremely complex like cable railing system that I've never done before in my life, and I have no clue how to do it, but they have. I'm bringing them in for one day to do the railings only. I'll do everything else myself, and then I can bring them in for a day. And then you modify that, you can really make some money by doing like the majority of it or whatever you can do yourself, instead of them taking the entire job and then you making less. Now, if you don't know anything about anything, then you're just going to have to pay them to do it. Yeah. But the other thing is you can also learn yourself. If you want to buy tools and start doing some of the things yourself, you can do that. The other thing you can do, which has given me a pretty immense discount with my subcontractors, is I'll pay them labor only, and I will get the job site prepped and ready for them. So like, let's say we have to demo a deck and the deck is permitted. I'm going to do the whole demo myself, and I'm going to dig the footer holes and get the footing inspection. That shaves off like 2 days, maybe 3 days, because sometimes you have an inspection delay. So now you've saved 3 days. You're ready to go after the footing inspection. And then you let the boys come in and rip and run. for the 2 days that it might take to build it, and then they're out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's even lowering theirs even more, and you're paying them labor only. So 100% of your contract is labor. If that goes back to your workers' comp, right? You're just paying them labor.
Yep.
And then you're good to go. And they really like that. They really like that because it takes time to get materials.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time, especially lumber, because you're going to the lumber yard and you got to pick out the good lumber from the bad lumber. So that takes an extra day, and then you got to deliver it to the job yourself. And maybe the decking and the lumber are from 2 different suppliers. In my case, I get my decking, lumber, and railing all from different suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to go and get that stuff. I get it to the job, get everything staged, ready, whatever I can do. And then my subcontractors might come in and just do whatever they need to do.
And that way you are responsible for the takeoffs too. So
Exactly.
that way you don't have any, errors with
Right.
quantity.
You're putting a lot of reliance on a subcontractor, which if they're a good subcontractor, that's fine. But if you run short on material, which I'm trying to think if that's happened to us. I feel like it's happened to us on a fence, but never.
I've definitely on my projects have run short.
If I let a subcontractor do it.
Oh.
But have I ever myself run short? I don't think I've ever run short.
Really?
I'm pretty good at takeoffs.
I've been really close, but like sometimes with cuts and stuff like that, it gets weird.
Well, if I have a complex deck, I'm ordering extra, and hopefully, depending on the decking, they may not let me return the extra, or if not, you're just going to save it for another job. It doesn't go bad.
Yeah.
So you can just over order.
So one thing that, because I've discussed this with other people, and the question that always comes up is scheduling.
Oh, okay.
Now you have something worked out. You work with almost a unique case where the guy has just so many crews that
yes,
you can always get somebody, and you always get the same guys too, which is nice.
Yeah. It's Javier's crew. He's the business owner, but he has 5 crews, and so someone's going to be available, and we've been really good with that. And that's one thing about subs too is like for example, last year, I'm just one guy. I'm just one business owner. I was doing estimates in June. I was telling people I'm booked to October. And guess what? People know the work quality. Nobody had a problem with that.
Yep. Yeah.
It was not an issue.
Anytime we back up with work, and it's normally around this time of the year, we start backing into like summer.
Yeah.
I've never had any pushback on it.
Nope.
In fact, it's almost easier to sell jobs when they hear that you're booked out because it scarcity, it's like,
I think,
well, now I got to make a decision faster.
I think I've lost like 2 jobs because of that, like in my life. Mm-hmm. But they needed, like, I think both of them, like they needed it done by like a specific like holiday or something. And like, there was no way I could do it. I told them
I have had those do it. Like a birthday party or 4th of July. It's like, hey, I need this done for this party. It's like, we can't get it done in 3 weeks.
But also that's important to manage expectations too. Like I had a deck job, and they told me like they needed it done by a certain day because they had a graduation party. And I just said like, this is not going to be possible to do. I said that at the estimate. Like we hadn't gone to contract or anything. They collected other bids, and they knowingly went with me, knowing like I was like, it cannot be done. It's not possible. And they still went forward.
That's good.
And it was fine.
Managing expectations is huge. I put so much emphasis on that.
Yeah.
I hate having those, and it's very rare that we have them now, but like when I first started, when you're still learning how to work things out, that you have a lot of awkward conversations.
Yes.
Kind of like, oh, I thought this was included, or I thought it was going to look like this. And
yes. That's
dude,
critical.
right off the bat now, with the scope of work that we outline, like there's no questions on what's getting done,
what's
how
included
much of
and
it.
what's not.
Exactly.
And the first line after my first page of my contract says, if it is not included in this contract, it is not being done. It is not included in the project.
Yeah.
And that is critical.
Now, that doesn't mean that we won't throw in a little extras, because
We do it all the time.
You start building a relationship with the clients like, hey,
do it all the time.
Dude, this job would look sick if we did this, but I know they're already spending a lot of money on this. Like we did that one patio that I was talking to you about, and we didn't do the fire add-on. That wasn't included in the scope of work. And the more I thought about it, I was like, dude, this thing would look sick with the fire. Yep. So I was like, I'll just do it. So I did the fire, and I came to him. I was like, hey, I got you guys like a little gift kind of thing. So definitely, that doesn't mean don't go above and beyond for clients when you feel that it's necessary, but that also means don't let clients kind of push you around.
Like, listen, you're there. They chose you to do a job. And, I mean, I'm never rude to somebody, but like I am stern at times if I need to be. And just be like, listen, like this is well beyond what was in the original scope of work. Like I have to charge a material and labor for this at this rate. And, you can decide if that's an hourly rate or if that's a day rate.
Change
it's
orders
based on your overhead.
Yeah, for sure. Change orders are a great opportunity to make a little bit extra money.
Yeah.
Or, even on some jobs, it's a little bit more than you thought, and you start to kind of dip down a little from
Right.
what you had expected. And the change orders are, a little bit of a way to sort of break even.
Yeah.
Not break even. Hopefully, you're not in the situation where you're worried about breaking even, but
Yeah, for sure.
To make up some of that lost.
Yeah, and again, you don't want to gouge anybody, because here's the thing with a change order. Realistically, like they will never go with anybody else to do that change order, because
Of
you're
course.
already there.
You
So
sort
you
of name your
do
price,
have
to be
like a
fair.
lot of power,
Mm-hmm.
but and I know contractors that do that, and it is like a very disingenuous business practice.
Yep.
But that's not to say that, like, if there were negotiations on the original contract, there's not going to be a negotiation on the change order. That's all I'm saying. Like, the price is the price.
Yep.
You're going to charge.
Speaking about that, I believe it was Alex Cavallo that had said it when negotiating prices.
Mhm.
I'll negotiate scopes of work. Like, hey, if
Yeah,
you want to, reduce the cost a little bit, we
Yeah.
could remove this or do this a little bit different. But negotiating the same scope of work for a different price, he said, if I had room to wiggle on this price, then I wasn't giving you a fair price to begin with.
Right. That's a good point.
If I say it's $10,000 and you're asking me if I can do it for $9,000, and I say, oh, I can do it for $9,000, then I was overcharging you $1,000 to begin with.
Yeah.
If I had that room to work
That's a
with.
great point. And it really just depends on, you have to make the decision as a business owner, and you have to make the call. Here's what I think. If you're making overhead and then you're making enough profit on top of that, it all depends on you knowing your own numbers. It also depends on what market rate is. Like in our area, it's, if it's like $65 a square foot for like Trex decking specifically with those white vinyl railings, it's $65 a square. You have the authority to charge that. Everyone else is going to charge that. We all have our square foot prices.
Yep.
So it's like, but then, okay, well, let's say you were going to charge $65 a square. You're making overhead, plus you're making, like, let's say $600 a day profit for 10 days. Well, would you take a $100 pay cut for 10 days, and now you can knock $1,000 off the price? If you are tight enough on your numbers and then sure, why not? But that's up to you as a business owner to make that call.
Yep.
That's on you. I mean, but if you don't know your numbers well enough, like I wouldn't stray too far from market rate.
Yeah.
Like you figure out that market rate when you first start, you stick to that. And if you know absolutely nothing about business at all, and you're subbing out 100%, just ask your subcontractor what you should, like, they're like, oh, we'll do it for 16 grand. It's like, okay, what should I charge? And they'll be like, oh, charge them 19.
Or honestly, most people, especially in the outdoor living industry, it might just be this area, but everybody seems super friendly.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people that, are just resources to me that
Yeah.
I can reach out to at any point
Yeah.
in time, and they're completely honest with what they're charging for stuff.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
any questions that I have, they're not hurt.
There really is so much work in this area that, like, even though there's competitors, there's not like real competitors, because there's always going to be enough work. I mean, I've had jobs where they couldn't even get anybody else to answer the phone. I was the only person who showed up. That's one. Or I was the only person who seemed reliable. Like, they wouldn't respond to email. But then, there's other situations where, like, I had one, and I had this one estimate. This is actually an interesting story. We did an estimate for a deck, and they wanted to use TimberTech Coastline, which is the most expensive decking in this area anywhere. It's over $9 a lineal foot, which, for reference, like, the Ware deck is in like the $5 range. So it's almost double the price. And they wanted the job for, I think it was like, I think I quoted it was like 56 grand or something. And I had like 19% profit margin, which we didn't really talk about numbers, but
gross.
Yeah, but you never want to be below 33%.
Yeah.
Never. Like
33
33% is like the minimum. You want to target. The target is 50.
Yeah.
Target.
It depends on the job, though.
Realistically, yes,
It depends on,
yes,
because I've had
it
jobs
does.
where I work out my gross and I'm at like 50% gross, and then I look at my net and I'm like at like 40% net, and I'm like, well, I have a lot of room that I can wiggle. But net is the number that's important. But that 50% is a good mark. Yeah.
But if you like, really, if I'm at 40, I'm fine. Like, that's fine with me. But I was at like 19%, and then they said that they had other quotes in the 70s for this. I was at 57. They said they had people in the 70s. I was like, I can see why. I know what the numbers were. And they said they had 10 other bids, and they sent them to me. I even asked. That's a good strategy too. We'll talk about that in a minute. But they sent it to me. The guy quoted it for 50. 50. I was like, I don't know how he did it for 50. Like, cause I know the numbers. I know how long the job was going to take. That's another thing when you're doing estimates. You'll learn how long a job's going to take, and that's how you calculate it in reference to your business overhead, and that's how you calculate how much gross profit you're projected to make on the job. I knew it could not be done for 50. For me, it's not possible. I don't know what that guy's overhead must have been, or if he just did it himself and had no laborers and it took him like weeks, maybe. I don't know how he did it, but they told me they liked me the most. I was the most professional they met with, and they really wanted me to do it, but it had to be for 50, and I had to there's no choice.
Yeah.
Like, I know the math wasn't going to be possible. And, so I just had to decline the job, but so that does happen. But that's the important knowing your numbers. Cause if I had taken that job for 50, I mean, the profit I think on that was something like on 50, it was like $4,000, and it was at least probably a 3 to 4 week job. So it was like, you can't profit $1,000 a week, like gross.
Yeah.
Gross. That's way too low. Like, there's no way.
You're paying to do the job.
Exactly. So that's kind of important as well.
Now, you had mentioned having the client send you estimates.
Yes.
I love that.
That's a great strategy.
There's a guy that I watch on YouTube, and everybody should check him out. Dude's an animal. It's John Seaman. Have you seen him?
I have not.
He's in North Carolina or South Carolina. I'm pretty sure it's South Carolina. They got hit with bad storms and stuff like that a couple months ago, and he was doing all that storm work. He has a YouTube channel, does really cool stuff. Anyways, I was watching one of his videos, and he'll openly post like conversations with clients, which is so cool to see an insight on how other business owners like handle certain objections and stuff. Yeah. And he had brought up a super good point in sales is, at some point you almost realize like there's probably not a chance that I'm going to get this job. And like as a Hail Mary, it's like, hey, doesn't sound like you're going to go with us. I'd be more than happy to be a resource for you as you move through this process.
That's nice.
If you ever have any questions, you want to send me over their estimates, I can take a look at them and let you know if, they're missing something or, something's not being done right. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, help you out. He said it brings their guard down. And now they're looking at you as like, hey, he's out of the picture. So they let their guard down. They're able to be a little bit more honest with you about the competitors.
Yes, for sure.
It's like, so what are some concerns that you had with this other company? And then they're like, oh, well, he didn't take measurements of this and just kind of eyeballed it. And now, you start to gain that. And it's almost a last resort, a last ditch effort. But that's how he explained it. It made a lot of sense because now they let that guard down. And
that's a good way to do it. And what I do, honestly, is you can just tell somebody like up front, if you know what the job is, once you know your numbers even a little better, you'll really be able to say this. Like, you can even tell people you recommend they get 2 or 3 other quotes. That way it shows you're not afraid of competition.
I always say that. Yeah.
And they should, but you can even tell them right away, like, I'm not going to be the lowest flat out, but I would like to see if you receive other bids, if you could forward those to me to make sure that all of us are quoting the same thing so we can compare it apple to apples. Right. And then you can really look at it. And man, I have seen some other bids that these guys send out. That stuff is jank.
Dude, because
it is jank.
Our scopes of work are really similar.
Yeah.
As far as, obviously decks and pavers are different, but we outlined, the sizes, the specifics of everything, the material that we're using. How is this going to be done?
Yes.
You know what I mean? I'm sure if you're doing helical piles, you're going to say that you're doing that rather than
and I'm going to even make it sound fancy, man. I'm going to tell them we're using a galvanized screw pile with a 9-inch helix.
Exactly.
I'm going to say everything.
Yep. And, certain things on projects that we do, it's like, okay, well, this curve is going to be a 3-foot radius. And
nice.
That's nice. We're doing this fire pit kit and it's going to include this specific insert. And dude, I see other quotes and it's like, 300 square foot patio.
Yeah.
What pavers are you using?
Right.
What base?
Exactly.
I outlined
they don't say
the depth of our base.
They're going to use 3 inches of base.
Yeah. It's like,
and you can even tell them, you get like, listen, like I quoted this for 7 inches of base. I'd be curious if like they're going to use that amount, which obviously they're not.
Yeah.
But the other thing is even beyond that and the specificity and the detail of your contract is automatically going to set you apart. But one huge pet peeve of mine, maybe this is because I went to college. My major was all writing, man. We wrote so many reports, man. My master's thesis was like, 70 pages or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like they were such a stickler about grammar and spelling.
Yes.
What an easy thing to get right is spelling. Like, they just send over an email. First off, when you email a quote, you want it to either be from a software or at least a PDF document of a quote. You don't want to just have it in like bullets in an email, which the majority of people already do that. And they'll just forward me the email. It's all bullets, not formatted.
Or text.
Spelling, text.
Do the text.
Spelling errors. Like, I mean, this is the person that, like, they can't even spell, like, treated lumber. I don't know, whatever word. They can't even spell it. And they're going to build a deck? Like, I know everyone's going to jump on me for that and be like, well, you don't have to have an education to, you don't. That is true.
Yeah.
But, like, it's attention to detail. It's not just about the spelling itself. Like, do you take pride in your work? Does that reflect through your contract and your bid and your proposals? And that is going to translate into your work that you actually do.
I 100% agree.
So,
I 100%
for sure.
Agree. No,
so I'm tight about that, man, when I see other proposals. But the point is, I ask for people to send me other proposals. I've gotten some very interested responses. Like, I've had people just say absolutely not. And I'm like, okay.
People, and we'll talk about budgets. We have that conversation almost on a weekly basis.
Oh, no. I got a lot to say about this.
I think it's really important at the end of the day, yes, it's my job to make recommendations on what they should do, but at the very end of the day, it's the client's project. It's their decision. I just think it's important that they should understand that they are buying 3 inches of base.
Right.
Whether they think that they need 3 inches of base compared to, 8 inches of base is a conversation for another time. But some people might think that they're getting that 8 inches of base for this price. It's like, let's at least break that barrier down and see, you do know that you're buying 3 inches of base, right? It's like, yes, I understand. I want to save some money. It's like, okay, that's a different conversation.
Right.
But for you to think that their price is just cheaper because I'm trying to rip you off and they're not, that's, you know what I mean? That's where the problems begin.
100%.
I think just the transparency and the scope of work and the client understanding what they're paying for is the most important thing.
Certainly. Absolutely. And that just goes back to the importance of a detailed proposal. That's going to show what you're going to do. I mean, if someone is lower than me on price, like maybe it's because I'm framing my joist 12 inches on center and they're framing theirs on 16s. Mm-hmm. That's a lot less lumber.
Yes.
That's the lower price. I want to know what they're using. I want to know what size joist they're using. Are they using 2x8 or 2x10? That's a big difference. Are they using a double 2x12 beam or a double 2x8 beam? Mm-hmm. How many footers? What type of post? Are they going to put it up on 4x4s or are they going to use 6x6s the right way? I got a lot of questions.
Are they licensed?
That's another huge one, and you would be surprised.
People might think there are a lot of people out there that are unlicensed that do good work, that know what they're doing. That's true. That's absolutely true. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I keep saying at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is the liability is on the homeowner if they are not licensed.
Exactly.
I'm
people
licensed.
Don't understand that.
Yeah, I'm licensed. I come in. God forbid something happens and your house falls down. You can legally go after me. You have the Maryland Guarantee Fund through the Home Improvement Commission,
and you also have your liability insurance.
Exactly.
So they have a lot to fall back on.
If you hire an unlicensed contractor, you don't have a foot to stand on in court. There's not a thing you can do.
Yep.
They're just gonna say, well, you should have thought about that. You should have done better. You should have pre-qualified your contractor.
Exactly. And things just happen on jobs. Like, for example, we had a gas line 2 weeks ago, and we called Miss Utility before the job started. Again, that's a legal requirement, or UtiliQuest or 811 or whatever it is. Before you dig, you have to call to have public utilities marked. Of course, they did that. The mark was 34 inches off. We hit a gas line. Gas starts pouring out. So I told the guy, he was working from home. I was like, we got to call 911. He thought I was kidding. I was like, I'm not kidding. And I called 911
And you hit it with a shovel.
Yeah, it was with a post hole digger. So it's a soft line. And, but I told him, I was like, I just really wanted to relax. I was like, listen, like I have insurance, like whatever happens, which I knew realistically it's not on me because Miss Utility was the one that mismarked it. But still, even if I never called Miss Utility, it would be on me. Mm-hmm. But I have insurance. I would never want that insurance rate to go up by that much after a $500,000 house blows up. But the point is, like, you have insurance, and that's very reassuring because you're legit. Like, mistakes are going to happen, and it's going to be out of your control. That was completely out of our control. There was nothing we could have done about that. but you're backed by your insurance. You're backed by your license. In Maryland, you're backed by the Home Improvement Guarantee Fund. And that sets you apart from these guys that are just going to run around, and they may do good work. I'm not saying they don't. Most of them don't, but they might. But what if something happens? When something happens, not if something's going to happen to them at some point. Their luck's going to run out. It's a huge thing with unlicensed tree guys. Good God.
Yes.
Good God. What a mess. I mean, I know a lot of these unlicensed tree guys run around Anne Arundel County, and they took some trees down actually, and in a house in critical area, which they regulate how much trees you can take down in a critical area within 1,000 feet of the water, Chesapeake Bay watershed or Chesapeake Bay tributaries within 1,000 feet. And, the tree company was unlicensed and I think uninsured. Who did the county fine? The homeowner. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's multi-$1,000 fines.
Yep.
So, but the good news is that Anne Arundel County actually wants to chase down these unlicensed guys and get them off the street. So they actually will drop your fine if you can help them get the information for that contractor, and like they can actually find a way to pin it on them.
Yeah.
It then actually will take it taken off the homeowner, but you kind of have to help with that. So
go into the supplier.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's kind of funny. But the point is, don't hire unlicensed guys.
Yeah.
And that's all there is to it.
Yeah. Just protect yourself. You know, if you're in the market for having any work done, even interior work, whatever it might be, just make sure that they're licensed, they're insured.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Just do your homework on whoever you decide to pick.
Yep.
I think it's super important, speaking of doing your homework on a contractor, is for contractors and just companies in general to have enough content for a homeowner to make a decision.
Yes.
There's so many people. We were in North Carolina and my truck broke down.
I remember that. Yeah,
that's a story for a different time.
He put water in it.
I didn't put water in it. There was water in it, but I didn't put it there. I was trying to find a tow truck, and I you know how I am. I have OCD. I want to make sure I know who I'm hiring. Towing company, I get it. I don't expect to make YouTube channels and Instagrams and all that, but like some of them didn't even have like any pictures of their truck or anything. It's like,
so you have no idea.
No, I have no idea who I'm hiring. I have no idea who I'm calling. You know, so
right.
I think it's super important. I value it a lot that I put a lot of information out there. I want somebody to know who I am and to almost meet me before they meet me. You know, I want them to be able to see our Instagram videos, to see our YouTube videos, and feel like they know me before I even come out and meet with them initially. I think that's super important. And that brings us into your YouTube channel.
Yes. Launching. By the time this airs, there will be some videos live. We already have one video live, but should have plenty more by then. We have plenty of stuff filmed, and I've done some editing, so I'm not the best editor.
You're editing? Yeah. Oh, that's fun.
It's not professional, but it has cuts, and we edited out all the curse words, and
that's nice.
Like you do that kind of thing, and you're halfway there.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's just editing out like what's unnecessary and figuring that out. I mean, my first like real experience was I videoed for an entire day, and I shaved it down to like 35 minutes. Mm-hmm. That's all that was necessary. Yep. So that's all you really need.
So with your content, are you going to, I know you do a lot of how-to stuff. You like teaching people how to do things. Yeah. You do like the tip of the week and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's going to be some, it's going to be a mix of content. Like it's going to be a mix of how-tos. Like there will be some like, okay, how do you prepare for a ledger board? Meaning like we got to remove the siding. We got to remove the house wrap. You got to flash behind it. Then you got to lay out the ledger board and attach it with a certain number of ledger locks. Then you have to put Z flashing on. Then you have to drape the Tyvek over it. Everything. So it's going to be all laid out. Some videos like that. Others are just going to be walkthroughs or just showing like this is what we did, and or this is what we're doing.
Do you plan to do any like day in the life stuff, like Victory style?
Probably not.
No, that's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but second, like I'm not that interesting.
I feel the same way. I'm like I would really love to do that, but nobody's gonna sit there and watch my day.
No,
it's hard enough for me to go through it.
Yeah, there you go. That's a great point. No, I get up, I go to work, I come home. People ask what I do in my free time. I watch more YouTube videos about work.
Exactly.
Like, my work-life balance is absolutely horrible, but I like that. I don't care. Like that's fine. I don't go out anymore. I got that done in college. Like
I've always been that way. I don't really like going out. When I worked for the county, the guys used to make fun of me because I wouldn't go out to the bars with them.
That's
You're
that
a baby,
is funny.
you know, you need to grow up and come out. And I don't really like that.
When you grow up, you'll not go out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, to each their own. I mean, a lot of these guys like can't function without, that's just a way to blow off steam. And everyone needs that to some extent, but it just depends on like you and how hard you're working. You don't want to be burned out by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important thing. But, so just, you have to do what's balanced and best for yourself. That's something you learn. We
were messing around, just getting everything set up. We did a couple test podcasts. That's why I said the first official episode, because there has been other episodes. They will never reach the day of light, or the light of day. My goodness. But we did one with like Chelsea's sister, and she was sitting there and she was like, "So Garrett, what do you do for fun? What do you do in your free time?"
Nothing.
Well, I don't have much free time to start.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
And the free time that I do have, I am, not the most interesting person.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Obviously, we've talked to an extent in this podcast about like getting into business. Like, you don't have to make sacrifices. I mean, I've done it, and I say to some extent you do, but you can still choose like what you want to do. Like, you're not going to miss the birth of your child, obviously, but like, I mean, it just depends on what you prioritize. The biggest sacrifice you're going to make is your own time. Yeah. Really. I mean, and you determine how much time you want to do. I mean, it's not 40 hours a week. I don't know a single business owner who works 40. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, there's days where I'm out of the house by 6 and I'm back at 10 p.m.
Well, not only that, I mean, some weeks I'll be on site for 40 hours, but people don't understand.
Yes.
They see, it's like, okay, yeah, I might have worked on site for 40 hours or 50 hours, and that might not seem like a big deal. But when you wake up, at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning to, get a couple little tasks done in the office before you have to leave in the morning. And then, sometimes you have to wake up early because you have to go to the yard and get the trailer and dump dirt before you go to pick up your first load for the day. And the supplier opens at 7, so you got to be there when they open. And it's just a whole thing. But not only that, at the end of the day, the day's not finished.
Yep. There's a lot left.
The work might be finished, but now I'm going to go sit in the office and I'm going to work on proposals until 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Or I'm going to go to an estimate. Yeah. Multiple estimates. And that's just also, it depends on your business model. There are guys that are going to hire estimators. Obviously, not going to do that out of the gate. To be honest, my OCD doesn't allow that. And also, I don't want anybody representing my business that's not me, because
I understand that.
That's a big thing, man. And I hear that when I go to estimates all the time. Like, oh, this isn't, like, this guy wasn't as professional. Like, exactly what you said. Like, he didn't measure this. Or it's like, he didn't ask, like, they wanted a screened-in porch, and they were like, he didn't even ask us, like, anything about the setbacks from the rear of the property, because you can't build within a certain distance from the rear.
I can't tell you how many jobs I go to look at, and I get a laser level out, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Shooting elevation." They're like, "We've had 5 other companies come to look at this, and not a single one has looked at elevation." Right. And I'm like, "Well, that's pretty bad, because you have a 2-foot elevation change."
Yeah. How do they know how
something
big
that needs to be addressed,
or the set of steps is going to be?
Yeah.
And that's another thing that just sets you apart. And I can't have a salesperson go, I have nothing against salespeople, but I can't let someone do that in place of me. Like, no one's a better salesman than someone who actually knows what they're doing. I respect sales, and there's a lot of podcasts and there's a lot of material and books on sales tricks and sales tactics. But listen, there's a lot of differing opinion on this. I'd actually like to hear what you say about it. Like, do you want to show up to an estimate, like, looking clean, you got khakis on, you got a button-down shirt on, or do you want to show up after a 12-hour day covered in sweat and you smell like cigarettes, and you show up? This is the guy, man. This is a guy who's done it. This is a guy who knows what they're doing.
Honestly, dude, I go out and I think it's completely the client. I think there's some clients that eat that up, and they're like, "This guy busted his butt all day. He is going to come kill it on my job." And another client might look at him and be like, "This guy couldn't even put on a clean shirt before he came and met with me."
I'm not going to lie. I rarely put on a clean shirt when I go to an estimate.
I know. I try to schedule my meetings in the mornings.
Just so smart. Actually, I've never even done that
before I get too bad.
That's pretty smart.
Not only that, but I hate, because I'm always frustrated by the end of the day, and I've had so much stuff go through my mind. That's when I miss stuff on projects.
Yeah.
I forget to measure how high the door is off the ground, and then I get back to the office and I'm like, where do I start?
Well, then you count, if they have like the brick veneer, like you count
start
the bricks,
counting the siding.
Like how thick is one masonry joint? Like that's 3/4 of an inch. I'm gonna count it.
Or you forget to take a video or pictures.
I've done that.
You just get talking with the client, and then you get in your truck and you leave.
I've done that too many times. Yes. Oh my God, that's so critical.
But yeah, I like to schedule my meetings in the morning, and I will have other guests on this podcast that are different stages in business and have different business models, and I'm sure they will have a lot more to say about that, because at a certain point you can only grow so much with one estimator.
That's so true.
One salesperson.
But it also depends what you want to do.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
I know you want to blow up in business. I don't care to. Like, I like my business model. Let's say like my first full year, I think I did like 300, and now the last 2 years, most recent years, I've done like in the low 400s.
Yep.
Okay, but if you target that 35 to 40% gross profit, hopefully 40, but if you're doing a lot of sub works, that's kind of hard to reach sometimes. It depends on the job, but I'm fine.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I don't have an issue with making what I'm making, and if you can do all your write-offs correctly, like I didn't pay tax last year.
Yep.
Like, we're good.
I'm personally not in a rush to like scale. I don't want to blow up in a couple years. I'd like to be there at a certain point, doing a lot of projects and stuff and bigger projects, but hey, if the Lord's got me here for a while, I got some time, so I'll grow slow. And if he doesn't, then I'll be in a better place then than I am now.
That's a great point. That's a great argument.
So I'm not in any rush.
Yeah.
I'm not in any rush to get anywhere.
And that's the importance of not doing like anything too drastic in your first like year or two. Like, you want to grow so badly. It's like, I'm going to buy a skid steer. It's like, okay, well, who's going to operate it?
Yeah.
How much is that going to cost you per day? Like, yes, you can do a lot with a skid steer, but like, where are you going to keep it? How much is the maintenance cost? How much is your monthly payment? And are you going to have enough work generating to keep that skid steer busy? Just like you wouldn't employ, like, are you going to go out and hire an employee right away, instantly? Like, we don't know how much work you have. Are you going to be able to keep that guy busy?
I would love, and I've talked to him about this. He said he will. We have to work some things out. I would love to have Alex Cavallo on this podcast.
Okay, nice.
Have you heard his story and how he got started?
Not much.
I don't want to spoil it, because I'm almost positive he'll be on here and he can tell it. But he essentially, like, came swinging right out the gates.
Nice.
Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'll hire a guy and start there. Like, he sold a lot of work, got everything ready. And
he hit the
has
ground
running.
The difference between him and myself and a lot of other contractors is just branding and marketing. And he focused so hard on that and really already has that brand, that Oasis brand.
He has a huge risk tolerance.
Yeah, that too.
He does really well under pressure.
Yeah, that too.
And I personally would like freak out if I was in his position.
Oh, I would fold.
Just doing the type of projects he does.
Yeah.
Just the intricacies of them and the scale of them.
Yeah, I mean, even doing pools, which he does. I mean, I just don't. For me, I don't even like the liability behind it. I mean, I guess a deck could fall and someone could die, but if you follow the code, it's really not going to happen.
Yeah, pools
like
are scary.
Pools, man. I mean, someone can die.
Yeah,
I'd rather not think about that.
He does crazy work.
His work's nice.
Like I'm really OCD, and I send stuff to you all the time. Not that I talk crap, but I do like pick apart projects, and I've looked at his before. Zoomed in and I'm like, I can't find anything wrong with this, Yeah. It's like sometimes you'll pick it out. It's like that joint line was a little too long. I'm like looking at his pictures. I'm like, dude, his guys are killing it.
We point out four corners a lot on jobs.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
But guys don't. Most of the crews, I'd say at least 80% of the crews out there do not care about four corners. They just let it rip.
Yeah. He's got a lot of really good guys on his team. But he has a totally different aspect. He's got sales guys going out and doing stuff and estimators.
He's got a huge company, you know.
The way he managed, I mean, he's got a lot going on, and he manages quality control really well.
And he's your age or slightly older?
He's a little bit older.
Yeah. How old are you? I don't even remember.
Dude, I don't even know anymore. I'm 24.
Okay, so in a month from now, I turn 29. Yeah. So by the time this is out, I'll be 29.
I think he's right between us.
Yeah. I think he's like 2 or 3 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. But I mean, a great business mind. That's going to be an interesting podcast.
He's one person that like I could reach out to whenever and he'll answer any question I have.
And I've done that too.
I remember the very first paver job I did. It was this super small little landing at the base of these steps from a new deck. And like he's over here, doing $6 million a year. And I literally just quit my full-time job and started with the county. I'm like, not even doing $100,000 a year. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, like, how would you do this border? And he literally stops in the middle of his day and he calls me and like walks me through it.
Nice.
And I'm like, dude, just having somebody like that in your life, super. Yeah. I mean, he's just been a huge resource. Yeah, he's awesome. But
right on.
Cool, man. Well, I think that about wraps it up. We've talked about like everything that I wanted to touch base on.
We've touched base on everything. Obviously, we could deep dive on these topics for hours, but if you want to have me back on anytime,
I definitely will. We got to do like a part 2.
I'm down.
I definitely want like an update on subs. Dude, you've been using these guys for a while. I think they're here to stay.
Yes.
But I definitely want to do like an update. We'll see how your workers' comp audit goes this year.
Oh, it's going to be fun. Well, this year I know it. I mean, I have it tight, and obviously everything's always written down. But keep your spreadsheets clean, and you'll be good to go. I mean, make that audit easy. Just give them a list of your labor for the year. Mm-hmm. If it's already in your spreadsheets, which it should be if you have an annual spreadsheet, then it's just automatic. Yeah. But my audit this year will be much better.
There you go.
Than last year.
Neither of us here are like these, business moguls that you should look up to. But I think this podcast will be really helpful for somebody just getting started.
Yeah.
Because we
both went through that process within the past 3 years, both of us. Mm-hmm. And as far as that stuff goes, like the recency of what we've done and the amount that we've had to learn to do this is right there. Yep. So that has a lot of value to everybody. And whatever comments are left, I'd love to deep dive into any topic that we discussed. We really just glossed over a lot quickly. So I'm happy to deep dive into any specific topic that people want to hear more about.
Yeah, man, we'll get some feedback. We'll have you back on.
Happy to be a repeat guest.
We will for sure.
Fine with me.
You're like one of my close buddies, so I love being able to do this. Sit down and talk shop. So.
Anytime.
Well, cool. I think that about wraps it up. If you guys have any questions or any feedback on the podcast, we'd love to hear it. I know Alex is itching to answer some questions, especially on his business model. I've never really heard of anybody else doing it the way you do it. So super cool, super unique. His YouTube channel will be in the description. So if you guys are interested in decks, stuff like that, it's under your personal name, Alex Cavallo.
Yep, Alex Cavallo, Cavallo. Look it up, YouTube. So hit me up. We'll probably do some kind of raffle when we hit like the first.
Oh, sweet.
We just launched it like 2 days ago. So maybe when we hit 100 subs, if we do that, we'll do like a little.
There we go.
Some kind of giveaway. Maybe a Makita impact gun, or we'll do Milwaukee. Maybe I think
do Milwaukee. Come on.
More people. I run Makita, but I know more people like Milwaukee.
That's like giving away the crappy candy on Halloween.
I don't know about that.
All right. Well, we got to cut it. We got to go get dinner.
Right.
So
we're out of here.
Cool. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed. This has been the first episode of the PTG podcast. We'll catch you next time.